The warning light on the cargo hold had been blinking for 3 hours before Ho finally decided to check it. He had ignored it at first, thinking it was just another broken sensor on his old ship. The vessel was 20 years old and falling apart in more ways than he could count. But the light kept blinking, and his gut told him something was wrong. Ho pushed himself up from the pilot's seat and stretched his tired body. He had been flying alone for 6 days now, carrying medical supplies to a small human colony on the edge of known space. The job paid well, but the loneliness was starting to get to him. He missed the sound of another voice, even if it was just someone complaining about the food. He walked down the narrow hallway toward the cargo hold, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The ship hummed quietly around him, the engines working hard to push them through the empty darkness of space. Ho reached the cargo hold door and pressed the button to open it. The door slid open with a tired groan. Ho stepped inside and looked around at the stacked boxes of medicine. Everything seemed normal at first. The boxes were still in their places, secured with straps to keep them from moving during flight. But then he heard it, a small sound like breathing, coming from behind a large crate in the corner. Ho froze. His hand moved slowly to the small knife on his belt. It was not much of a weapon, but it was all he had. He took a careful step forward, then another. The breathing sound grew louder. Someone was definitely hiding back there. He moved around the crate and stopped. His eyes went wide with surprise. A young female was curled up on the floor, pressed against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. But she was not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost silver in the dim light of the cargo hold. She had long pointed ears that lay flat against her head, and her eyes were large and golden like a cat watching its prey. A thin tail wrapped around her legs, the tip twitching with fear or anger. He could not tell which. She was Ho had heard stories about them but had never seen one in person. They were a proud species from the far side of the galaxy, known for their beauty and their fierce independence. They looked down on most other species, especially humans, whom they considered primitive and weak. The female was hurt. Ho could see dark blood staining her torn clothes, and her breathing was rough and painful. She must have been hiding in his ship for days, slowly getting weaker. He took a step toward her. "Hey, are you okay? You are hurt. Let me help you." Her golden eyes flashed with anger, and she bared her teeth at him. They were sharp, like small fangs. "Stay away from me, human," she hissed. Her voice was weak but filled with venom. "I do not need help from your kind." Ho held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Look, I am not going to hurt you. You are bleeding. If you do not get that wound treated, you could die." "Then I will die," she snapped back. "It is better than accepting charity from a lesser species." Ho blinked at her words. Lesser species. He almost laughed. Here she was, hiding in his cargo hold, bleeding and weak, and she was still acting like she was better than him. The pride of that was truly something else. "Okay," he said slowly. "That is your choice, but can I at least know your name? Since you have been living on my ship without permission, I think I deserve that much." She glared at him for a long moment. Her tail stopped twitching and some of the tension left her body. "Lyra," she finally said. "My name is Lyra." "Lyra," Ho repeated. "That is a nice name. I am Ho. This is my ship, the Silver Wind. Not much to look at, but she gets me where I need to go." Lyra did not respond. She just kept watching him with those big golden eyes, like she was waiting for him to attack or try to capture her. Ho sighed and sat down on a nearby crate, keeping some distance between them. "How long have you been hiding here?" he asked. 4 days, she admitted. "I got on when your ship was docked at Station 12. Ho nodded. Station 12 was a busy trading post where ships from dozens of species came and went. It would have been easy for someone to sneak aboard during the chaos of loading and unloading cargo. "Why?" he asked. "Why hide on a human ship? I thought they hated us." Lyra's eyes flickered with something that might have been pain or shame. "I had no choice. I needed to get away and your ship was leaving. I did not care where it was going." "Get away from what?" She did not answer. Her jaw tightened and she looked away from him. Ho could see that this was not something she wanted to talk about. Whatever she was running from, it was bad enough to make a proud hide like a scared animal in a human cargo hold. He stood up slowly. "Fine, you do not have to tell me, but I am going to get the medical kit. You can keep pretending you do not need help, but that wound is not going to heal itself." "I told you I do not want your help," Lyra growled. "And I heard you," Ho said as he walked toward the door. "But I am going to help you anyway. You can yell at me all you want. It will not change anything." He left the cargo hold and went to get the medical supplies. When he came back, Lyra was still in the same spot, still glaring at him with those golden eyes. But she did not try to stop him when he knelt down beside her and opened the kit. "This might hurt," he warned her. "I can handle pain," she said coldly. Ho cleaned the wound on her side as gently as he could. It was deep, like something sharp had cut into her. Lyra made no sound, but he could see her hands shaking as she gripped the floor. Her pride would not let her show weakness, even now. When he finished wrapping the bandage around her, Ho sat back and looked at her. "There, it is not perfect, but it should help." Lyra looked down at the bandage, then back at him. Her expression was hard to read. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" Ho shrugged. "Nothing. You are hurt and I have medical supplies. It is not complicated." "Everything is complicated," Lyra said quietly. "No one helps without wanting something in return." Ho smiled sadly. "Maybe that is true where you come from, but I am just a simple cargo pilot. I found someone hurt on my ship, so I helped her. That is all." Lyra stared at him for a long time, like she was trying to find the lie in his words. But there was no lie to find. Ho stood up and headed for the door. "Get some rest," he said over his shoulder. "There is food in the kitchen if you get hungry. We still have 5 days until we reach the colony. Try not to die before then." He left her alone in the cargo hold, the door sliding shut behind him. As he walked back to the cockpit, Ho wondered what kind of trouble had followed that strange alien girl onto his ship. Whatever it was, he had a feeling his quiet life was about to get a lot more interesting. 2 days passed, and Lyra refused to leave the cargo hold. Ho checked on her twice a day to change her bandage and make sure she was still alive. Each time, she would glare at him and tell him to go away. Each time, he would ignore her words and do what needed to be done. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ho made breakfast in the small kitchen of his ship. It was nothing special, just rice and some vegetables from a can. But he made extra and put it on a tray with a cup of warm tea. He carried it down to the cargo hold and found Lyra sitting in her usual spot, watching him with suspicious eyes. "I brought you food," he said, setting the tray down near her. Lyra looked at the tray like it was a trap. "I already told you, I do not need your charity." "It is not charity, it is breakfast." Ho sat down on his usual crate, keeping a comfortable distance between them. "You have not eaten anything since you got on this ship. That was almost a week ago. Even a cannot survive on pride alone." Her golden eyes narrowed at his words. "Do not pretend to understand my people, human. You know nothing about us." "You are right, I do not know much," Ho admitted. "But I know that all living things need food and water. That is just basic biology. Your body does not care how proud you are. It needs fuel to heal that wound." Lyra said nothing. Her eyes moved to the tray, then back to his face. Her stomach made a small sound, and Ho saw her cheeks turn a slightly darker shade of blue. She was embarrassed, but she was also hungry. Very hungry. "I am not going to watch you eat," Ho said, standing up. "I will be in the cockpit if you need anything." He walked to the door but stopped when he heard her voice. "Wait." Ho turned around. Lyra was still looking at the food, her tail moving slowly behind her. "Why do you keep trying?" she asked quietly. "I have been nothing but rude to you. I called your species weak and primitive. I told you to leave me alone, but you keep coming back with medicine and food and that stupid gentle smile on your face. Why? Ho thought about it for a moment. Because being kind costs me nothing, he said simply, and because you are scared even if you will not admit it. Whatever you are running from, it must be terrible to make you hide on a stranger's ship and refuse help when you are dying. I do not know your story, Lyra, but I know fear when I see it, and I am not going to add to your pain just because you say mean things to me. Lyra stared at him with an expression he could not read. Her golden eyes seemed to soften just a little, but then she looked away quickly. Just go, she muttered, leave the food. Ho nodded and left the cargo hold. When he came back an hour later to collect the tray, the food was gone. The cup of tea was empty. He smiled to himself and said nothing about it. That evening, something changed. Ho was sitting in the cockpit, watching the stars drift by through the window when he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned and saw Lyra standing in the doorway. She was still weak, leaning against the wall for support, but she had left the cargo hold for the first time. The cargo hold is cold, she said, not meeting his eyes, and dark. I was just looking for somewhere warmer. Ho gestured to the empty co-pilot seat next to him. This is the warmest room on the ship. The heat from the control panels keeps it nice. You can sit here if you want. Lyra hesitated. Her pride was clearly fighting against her body's need for comfort. Finally, her body won. She walked slowly to the seat and lowered herself into it, wincing as the movement pulled at her wound. They sat in silence for a long time, watching the endless darkness of space together. Ho did not push her to talk. He had learned that Lyra would share things only when she was ready, and any attempt to force her would just make her close up again. It is beautiful, Lyra said suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. The stars, I have never seen them like this before. Ho glanced at her. Really? Your people have ships. You must have traveled through space many times. Traveling is not the same as seeing, Lyra replied. On ships, the windows are small and always covered. We are taught that the universe outside is dangerous and dirty. We are not supposed to enjoy it. That seems sad, Ho said. The stars are one of the best parts of this job. Sometimes I just sit here for hours and watch them. It makes me feel small, but in a good way. Like my problems are not that big compared to all of this. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Your problems must be very small indeed if you can forget them so easily. Ho laughed softly. Maybe, or maybe I have just learned not to carry them all the time. Worry does not solve anything, it just makes you tired. Lyra looked at him with something like curiosity. You are strange, Ho. Most humans I have heard about are loud and aggressive. They take what they want and do not care who they hurt, but you are quiet and patient. You give without asking. It does not match what I was taught. Maybe what you were taught was wrong, Ho said gently. There are bad humans just like there are bad, I am sure, but there are also good ones. We are not all the same. Lyra did not respond, but she did not argue either. She pulled her legs up onto the seat and wrapped her arms around them, making herself small. Her tail curled around her feet and her ears drooped slightly. She looked tired, Ho realized. Not just physically tired, but tired in her soul. You should get some sleep, he said. I can bring you a blanket if you want to stay here. I do not need a blanket, Lyra said automatically. Then, after a pause, she added, but if you already have one, I suppose it would be wasteful not to use it. Ho smiled and went to get a blanket from his cabin. When he came back, Lyra was still curled up in the chair, her golden eyes half closed. He draped the blanket over her carefully, and she did not pull away. Thank you, she whispered, so quietly he almost did not hear it. You are welcome, Ho replied. He settled back into his own seat and returned to watching the stars. After a few minutes, he heard Lyra's breathing slow down as she fell asleep. Her face looked peaceful in sleep, all the anger and fear smoothed away. She looked young, he realized, maybe even younger than him. Ho did not know what had made this proud girl run away from her home. He did not know what wounds she carried inside that were deeper than the cut on her side. But he knew that she was safe on his ship, at least for now. And he would make sure she stayed that way. The stars continued their slow dance outside the window, and the silver wind flew on through the quiet darkness. Somewhere behind them, whatever Lyra was running from waited, but that was a problem for another day. Tonight, there was warmth and safety and the gentle hum of engines. For the first time since she had come aboard, Lyra slept without nightmares. By the fourth day, something had shifted between them. Lyra no longer hid in the cargo hold. She spent most of her time in the cockpit, sitting in the co-pilot seat with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. She still did not talk much, but her silence felt different now. It was comfortable instead of hostile. Ho went about his daily routine as if having a passenger was the most normal thing in the world. He cooked meals and set a plate in front of her without comment. She ate without complaining, though she always waited until he turned away before picking up the food. Her pride still would not let her be seen accepting his kindness directly. On this particular morning, Ho was making noodles when Lyra appeared in the kitchen doorway. She watched him work, her golden eyes following his movements with curiosity. "What are you making?" she asked. "Noodles with egg," Ho replied. "It is simple, but it is warm and fills the stomach. Do you have noodles on your planet?" "We have something similar," Lyra said. She stepped closer, her tail swaying gently behind her. "But they are served cold and only on special occasions. Hot food is considered crude among my people." "That is interesting," Ho said. "On Earth, hot food is one of life's greatest comforts. There is something about a warm meal that makes everything feel better." He finished cooking and divided the noodles into 2 bowls. When he handed one to Lyra, she took it without her usual hesitation. Progress, he thought. They sat at the small table in the kitchen, eating their noodles in comfortable silence. Ho noticed that Lyra kept glancing at him, like she wanted to say something but could not find the words. "If you have questions, you can ask," he said gently. "I do not bite." Lyra looked down at her bowl. "I was just wondering about your family. Do you have one, a mate, children?" Ho shook his head. "No mate, no children. It is just me and this old ship. I had a family once, parents and a younger sister, but they died when I was young. Disease took them." "I am sorry," Lyra said, and she sounded like she meant it. "That must have been hard." "It was," Ho admitted. "But it was a long time ago. I have learned to live with the loss. The pain never goes away completely, but it gets softer with time." Lyra was quiet for a moment. "Among my people, we do not speak of loss. We are taught that showing grief is a weakness. When someone dies, we simply move forward as if they never existed." "That sounds lonely," Ho said. "It is," Lyra whispered, "very lonely." She did not say anything else about her people, and Ho did not push. But he noticed that she stayed closer to him after that conversation. When he moved to the cockpit, she followed. When he sat down, she sat nearby. It was like she was afraid to be too far from the only source of warmth she had found. That night, something changed again. Ho was in the cockpit, doing his usual routine of watching the stars before sleep. The ship was quiet, and the only light came from the soft glow of the control panels. Lyra was in her usual seat, wrapped in her blanket, but she was not sleeping. She was watching him instead. "It is cold tonight," she said suddenly. Ho checked the temperature display. "It is the same as always. Maybe you are just tired." "Maybe," Lyra agreed. But she did not close her eyes. Instead, she stood up and walked toward him, her blanket trailing behind her like a cape. She stopped right next to his chair. "What are you doing?" Ho asked, surprised. Lyra did not answer. With movements that seemed to fight against her own will, she sat down on the floor beside his chair. Then slowly, she leaned against his leg, resting her head against his knee. Ho froze. He had no idea what to do. No one had been this close to him in years, and certainly not a proud who had spent the first few days threatening to claw his eyes out. "This means nothing," Lyra said quickly, her voice muffled against his knee. "I am just cold. Body heat is efficient. This is practical, nothing more." "Of course," Ho said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just practical. Do not read into it. I would not dream of it." "I am not your pet," Lyra added, her tail wrapping around his ankle. "Just because I am sitting here does not mean anything has changed between us." "Understood," Ho said. "You are definitely not my pet. You are a fierce and independent who happens to be sitting on my floor for purely practical reasons." Lyra made a small sound that might have been agreement or annoyance. Ho could not tell which, but she did not move away. If anything, she pressed closer, her body relaxing against his leg as the warmth seeped into her. Ho looked down at her and felt something shift in his chest. This strange, proud creature had been so determined to hate him. She had called his species weak and primitive. She had refused his help and pushed him away at every turn. But here she was now, curled up against him like a cat seeking comfort from a storm. Without thinking, he reached down and gently touched her hair. It was soft, softer than he expected, and slightly cool to the touch. Lyra tensed at the contact, but she did not pull away. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I do not know," Ho admitted. "Is this okay?" There was a long pause. Then very quietly Lyra said, "Do not stop." Ho continued to stroke her hair, his fingers moving in slow, gentle patterns. Lyra's eyes drifted closed, and her breathing grew slow and even. Her tail loosened its grip on his ankle, and her whole body seemed to melt against him. "Ho," she murmured sleepily. "Yes. You are still strange, but perhaps strange is not always bad." He smiled. "I will take that as a compliment." Lyra did not respond. She had already fallen asleep, her head still resting on his knee, her small body pressed against his leg for warmth. Ho stayed perfectly still, not wanting to disturb her. His hand remained in her hair, fingers gently moving through the soft strands. He thought about how quickly things had changed. Just a few days ago, she had been a hissing, spitting bundle of anger and fear, hiding in his cargo hold and threatening him with her claws. Now she was sleeping peacefully against him, trusting him enough to let her guard down. Humans were social creatures. They needed connection and touch and warmth. Ho had been alone for so long that he had almost forgotten how much he craved those things. But having Lyra here, feeling her trust in him, filled a hole he had not known was there. He did not know what the future held. They would reach the colony in 2 days, and then what? Would she leave? Would she stay? Did she even have anywhere to go? Those were questions for tomorrow. Tonight, there was just this moment, this strange and unexpected peace. The stars watched silently as the human and the drifted through space together. No longer strangers, not yet friends, but something in between that had no name. Ho woke up with a stiff neck and a still sleeping against his leg. He had not meant to fall asleep in the chair, but exhaustion had taken him sometime during the night. Sunlight from a nearby star was streaming through the cockpit window, casting golden patterns across the floor. Lyra stirred as he shifted, her ears twitching at the change in position. She opened her eyes slowly, then seemed to realize where she was. Her whole body went rigid. "I fell asleep," she said, pulling away quickly. Her cheeks had turned that darker shade of blue again. "That was not intentional. I was just tired." "It is fine," Ho said, stretching his aching muscles. "I fell asleep too. We were both tired." Lyra stood up and wrapped her blanket around herself like armor. She moved to the other side of the cockpit, putting distance between them. Ho did not comment on it. He knew by now that she needed space after moments of vulnerability. "I will make breakfast," he said, standing up. "We are about a day and a half from the colony now. We should talk about what happens when we arrive." Lyra's tail stopped moving. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you have somewhere to go? Someone waiting for you? Or were you planning to just wander off into the unknown?" She did not answer right away. Ho headed to the kitchen to start cooking, giving her time to think. He made eggs and toast this time, something simple that did not require much attention. His mind was busy with other thoughts. Lyra appeared in the doorway just as he was finishing. She looked troubled, her golden eyes heavy with something unspoken. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. If you found out something about me, something bad, would you treat me differently?" Ho turned to face her. "That depends on what it is. Did you kill someone, steal something valuable, betray your people to their enemies?" "No, nothing like that," Lyra said quickly. "It is more about why I ran away, the truth of it." Ho handed her a plate of food and sat down at the table. "Then tell me, I am listening." Lyra sat across from him, but she did not touch her food. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, and her tail was wrapped around the leg of the chair like it was holding on for support. "I told you that I needed to get away," she began slowly. "But I did not tell you from what. The truth is, I was running from a marriage." "A marriage?" Ho repeated. "You ran away from your wedding." "Not just any wedding," Lyra said, her voice bitter. "A political arrangement. My family is connected to the ruling council of our planet. I am not royal, but I am close enough to be useful. When I came of age, they sold me to a high lord who wanted a young bride to produce heirs for him." Ho felt his stomach turn. "They sold you." "That is how it works among the nobility. Women are assets to be traded. The High Lord paid a fortune for me. I was supposed to be honored by his attention." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He is old, Ho, old and cruel. I met him once before the wedding, and the way he looked at me made my skin crawl, like I was meat to be consumed." "So you ran," Ho said. "I ran," Lyra confirmed. "On the night before the ceremony, I drugged my guards and escaped through a service tunnel. I made it to the spaceport and hid in the first ship I found. Your ship." She finally looked at him, her golden eyes searching his face for judgment. "Do you understand now? I am not just a runaway, I am a criminal. By fleeing that marriage, I broke a sacred contract. My family lost everything they were promised. The High Lord was humiliated in front of the entire court. If they catch me, they will not just drag me back. They will punish me first, make an example of me." Ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What would you have me do?" Lyra blinked at him. "What?" "You are telling me this for a reason," he said. "Are you asking for my help, my permission to stay, or are you warning me that trouble is following you?" "I do not know," Lyra admitted. "I just thought you deserved to know the truth. You have been kind to me, kinder than anyone has ever been. I did not want to keep lying to you." Ho nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, but here is the thing, Lyra. I do not care about politics. I do not care about your High Lord or your family's contracts. What I care about is that someone tried to force you into something you did not want, and you had the courage to say no." "Courage?" Lyra's voice cracked. "I was terrified. I am still terrified." "Being brave is not about not being afraid," Ho said gently. "It is about being afraid and doing what needs to be done anyway. You were facing a terrible fate, and you chose to fight for yourself. That is not something to be ashamed of." Lyra stared at him like she had never seen anything like him before. "You really mean that, do you not? You are not angry. You are not going to turn me in for a reward." "Is there a reward?" "Probably a large one." Ho smiled. "I do not need money that badly. Besides, what would I do with a fortune? Buy a newer ship. I like this old one. She has character." Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Maybe both. You are the strangest human I have ever met." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of her confession settling between them. Lyra finally picked up her food and started eating, though her movements were slow and tired. The truth had taken a lot out of her. "So what happens now?" she asked between bites. Ho thought about it. "When we reach the colony, I will deliver my cargo. After that, I was planning to pick up another job and move on. But if you want, you could stay on the ship. I could use a co-pilot, even one who does not know how to fly." Lyra's ears perked up slightly. "You would let me stay, even knowing what trouble might follow me?" "Trouble follows everyone," Ho said. "At least with you around, the ship would not be so quiet. And you can learn to cook. I am tired of making all the meals." "I do not know how to cook," Lyra said. "Then I will teach you. See, it works out perfectly." Lyra was quiet for a moment, staring down at her plate. When she looked up, her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. It was the first real smile he had seen on her face, and it transformed her completely. She was beautiful, he realized. Not in the cold, distant way of nobility, but in a warm, real way that made his heart skip. "Thank you, Ho," she said softly, "for everything." "You are welcome," he replied. "Now eat your eggs before they get cold. We have a long day ahead of us." She laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen like music. Ho felt something loosen in his chest, a tension he had not known he was carrying. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but somehow, in this tiny ship floating through the endless dark, two lonely souls had found each other, and that was enough. The trouble came faster than either of them expected. They were only a few hours from the colony when the warning alarm started screaming. Ho rushed to the cockpit with Lyra close behind him. The radar screen showed two ships approaching fast, their signals marked in red. "Bounty hunters," Ho muttered, his hands flying over the controls. "They must have tracked you somehow." Lyra's face went pale. "I had a tracker chip under my skin. I thought I removed it, but maybe I missed a piece." "It does not matter now," Ho said. "What matters is that they are faster than us. We cannot outrun them." The communication panel crackled to life, and a harsh voice filled the cockpit. "Human vessel Silver Wind, you are carrying stolen property belonging to Lord of the High Council. Surrender the female and you will not be harmed. Resist, and we will destroy your ship." Lyra grabbed Ho's arm. "You should give me up. There is no reason for you to die for me. I knew this would happen eventually." "Stop talking nonsense," Ho said firmly. He reached under the control panel and pulled out a small device. "I have a plan." "What is that?" "Emergency beacon. It sends a distress signal to any ships in the area. The colony has a defense force. If they hear we are under attack, they might send help." "And if they do not?" Ho looked at her with steady eyes. "Then we fight." He activated the beacon and threw it aside. Then he pulled the ship into a sharp turn, diving toward a nearby asteroid field. The bounty hunter ships followed, their weapons charging with a high-pitched whine. "Hold on to something," Ho warned. The Silver Wind plunged into the asteroid field, dodging between giant rocks that spun slowly through space. Ho flew like a man possessed, using every trick he had learned in 20 years of piloting. The old ship groaned and complained, but she held together. The bounty hunters were good, but they were not used to flying in such tight spaces. One of them clipped an asteroid and spun off course, damaged but not destroyed. The other kept coming, getting closer and closer. A blast of energy hit the Silver Wind's side and the ship shook violently. Warning lights flashed everywhere. They had lost the rear shields. "We cannot keep this up," Lyra shouted over the noise. "I know," Ho said through gritted teeth, "but we just need to buy a few more minutes." The bounty hunter ship lined up for another shot. Ho could see it through the window, a sleek and deadly vessel with weapons that could tear his old cargo ship apart. He prepared to make one last desperate move. Then something wonderful happened. 3 human defense ships burst out of nowhere, their weapons blazing. They fell on the bounty hunter like wolves on a wounded animal. The enemy ship tried to escape, but it was too late. Within seconds, it was disabled and drifting, its crew calling for mercy. The voice on the communication panel changed to something warm and friendly. Silver Wind, this is the Colony Defense Force. We received your distress signal. Are you and your passenger safe? Ho let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Yes, we are safe. Thank you so much. Glad to help. Escort is on the way. Those bounty hunters will be detained and sent back to space without their prize. You are under human protection now. Lyra was shaking beside him, her whole body trembling with relief and shock. They came, she whispered. They actually came to help. I told you, Ho said softly. Not all humans are what you were taught. Some of us look out for each other, and some of us look out for anyone who needs help. The escort ships arrived and guided them safely out of the asteroid field. The colony grew larger in the window, a bright station hanging against the darkness of space. Ho docked his damaged ship with careful movements, and when the engines finally went quiet, the silence felt like a blessing. He slumped back in his chair, exhausted. Every muscle in his body ached and his hands were still shaking from the fight. They had come so close to dying, so close to losing everything. Lyra was staring at him with an expression he could not name. Her golden eyes were wide and wet, and her lips were trembling. You almost died for me, she said. Why, you could have given me up. They would have let you go. I told you before, Ho said tiredly. Trouble follows everyone. You are my crew now. I do not abandon my crew. I am your crew. If you want to be, the offer still stands. Lyra moved before he could react. She crossed the small space between them and climbed into his lap, curling up against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her arms wrapped around him, and her face pressed into his shoulder. You stupid, wonderful human, she mumbled against him. You could have died. But I did not, Ho said. His arms came up slowly to hold her, pulling her closer. We are both alive, we are safe, that is what matters. Lyra pulled back just enough to look at his face. Her golden eyes were filled with something soft and warm, something he had never seen in them before. I need you to understand something, she said seriously. I am not your pet. I am not some helpless creature you rescued. I am proud and fierce and independent. I know, Ho said. Good. She settled back against his chest, her head finding the perfect spot in the curve of his neck. Her tail wrapped around his arm like it belonged there. I am just sitting here because you are warm and I am tired. It is purely practical. Of course it is. And I am definitely not falling in love with you or anything ridiculous like that. Ho smiled and rested his cheek against her hair. I would never suggest such a thing. Good, Lyra repeated, because that would be absurd. I am a human, it would never work. Never, Ho agreed. They sat there in the quiet cockpit, holding each other while the colony station hummed with activity outside. Through the window, they could see humans and aliens of all kinds going about their lives, completely unaware of the two souls who had just found each other against all odds. Ho, Lyra said sleepily. Yes. Thank you for not giving up on me. He pressed a gentle kiss to the top of her head. Thank you for letting me in. Lyra made a soft sound of contentment and closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed as she drifted toward sleep, safe and warm in his arms. She was still proud. She was still fierce. She was still independent. But she was also his in whatever way she chose to be. The stars watched as they always did, silent witnesses to a story as old as time. Two souls from different worlds, brought together by chance and held together by choice. It was not a perfect love story. It was messy and complicated and full of sharp edges. But it was theirs. And as Lyra curled deeper into his lap, mumbling something about definitely not being his pet, Ho decided that it was more than enough. The universe could wait. Right now, he had everything he needed.